The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 179 with Rene Cammarata from Training Inc.
I want them to feel like walking onto the first tee that they've already won the tournament. They have that walk of confidence that you're speaking of, that showing up and going through those 18 holes or 9 holes is just a formality.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast this week, where I'm chatting with Rene Cammarata from Training Inc. up in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. And Rene is known to be one of the top strength coaches, speed and agility coaches, and golf fitness professionals in the area up and around Philly. And today our conversation revolves a lot around junior golf and what his experience has been with junior golfers coming into his facility, and just kind of globally or nationally what we've experienced and learned from some of the other professionals that we have coordinated with and talked with, and how a lot of the junior golfers showing up to the training facilities, the golf course, don't necessarily present with some of the same athletic abilities that some of the other kids of their same age that maybe play another sport too, baseball, basketball, soccer, those kinds of things. And what's missing, and how can we maybe look at what we need to change when it comes to working with these athletes. So if you're a junior golfer listening to this, what can you personally do to set yourself up for a higher potential to play better by bringing in some more athleticism into what you're currently doing? Or if you are a trainer or a fitness professional or medical professional or a swing coach, what can you as the coach do to kind of set this foundation for these youngsters so they can have, a little bit more of a foundational base underneath them when it comes to the athleticism? And also, if you're a parent, what should you be looking for? How can you really kind of help set your kids up for the greatest success when it comes to their golf career? So with Rene's experience working with so many golfers, so many junior athletes over the years, over 20 years of experience, he's a TPI certified fitness level 3 instructor, power coach. He is a speed and agility specialist. So he has a ton of background in all of this. And we discuss, why is it even important? I mean, does it really matter to make a golfer more athletic or make an athlete become a golfer? And I think, Rene touches on some pretty important reasons why that's a very important piece and how it's going to help down the road. He also shared with me, I don't think this made it in the recording, but it was a funny, somewhat funny quote from a very famous javelin thrower by the name of Tapio Corgis, who stated, "You Americans have it all backwards. You think sport first, then athlete." And I think that really kind of sums up a lot of what we're talking about here. So I think you're really going to enjoy the show. And before we get into the interview with Rene, I just want to let you know that we have created a 4-part video series here at 18 Strong called Get Off the Golf Fitness Roller Coaster for all of you golfers out there, because whether you're a junior golfer, you're a senior golfer, you're a middle-aged golfer, whatever it is, we've been hearing from a lot of you asking, where do I start? How do I stay on track with what I'm doing with my fitness program or my workouts or my diet? And that's exactly what it can be. It can be a roller coaster of being really good at times and kind of falling off the wagon at other times. So this video series is meant to give you our basic fundamentals of what you need to do, what you should be paying attention to, and what are the other things that you can let go and not worry so much about, so you can stay on track, you can get your body feeling much better, and what you need to be doing in your workouts to really make them the most beneficial and efficient, so you're not wasting a bunch of time in the gym. So go to 18strong.com/rollercoaster. You can get these videos delivered directly to your email inbox. Again, totally for free. Again, 18strong.com/rollercoaster. All right, let's get into our interview with Rene Cammarata. Rene, welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, finally.
Right? I can't believe I'm actually on 18 Strong Podcast. This is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's been a long time coming for sure. And I know that we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We're specifically going to talk about, I think, the topic of junior golfers and kind of performance and training and working with the junior golfers, kind of around age 13 to 18. But a lot of this is going to apply to so many more people than just that age group. It's going to apply to the trainers, parents, coaches, the golfers themselves, and then even golfers or non-golfers really, regarding the topic of just the sports and athletic background and what you've been seeing. I know you work with a lot of junior golfers and athletes. What is it that, because, we've kind of been going back and forth on this topic a little bit, and what is it that really prompted you to want to talk about what you've seen in the athletes that you've been working with, or in the athletes just kind of in the general landscape of golf?
I think, for a sport that's so technologically advanced with pressure plates and Doppler radar systems and 3D motion capture systems, they're since Tiger Woods, it's really started to take off, this whole idea of golf fitness and golf performance. I started getting more involved in golf and golf performance, and I got my TPI certification. And I was really trying to get more of these kids involved, and I reached out to all the club professionals. I really didn't get any traction. I got the typical golf professionals. I got the competitive golfers. I really couldn't get a lot of this traction with the junior golfers. But once I started taking hold, the word kind of spread. And, I'd get these golfers that would come in, and the junior golfers, that is, and, they're competitive ones. These are the guys that, go out there, they play for the school team, they play for the competitive leagues that in the area, national or local. But, they had a different makeup, like a psychological makeup and physical makeup than, let's say, a team sport athlete would come to you. You could actually look at a team sport athlete like a soccer player, a football player, a baseball player of the same age, and they'd have a little different look to them. And so, I'm like, why are these junior golfers, what's kind of sets them apart from like other athletes their same age? Is it psychological? Is it physiological? Is it a mindset kind of thing? Is it because of the coaching that they receive? They don't have the typical high school football coach or baseball coach who is really like a, kind of a, very strong personality guiding them through this, making it known that there's certain things expected of them physically. I get these golfers in and you do the physical screenings just like for anybody. Maybe it's the parents that think that, why do the kids have to train for golf? It's golf, right? But and I know that, you do these physical assessments. We look at their mobility, stability, balance, coordination, speed, power, and so forth. And, most of these kids that play golf are really, really mobile. And it's not a mobility restriction. Usually it's a stability issue. They just lack a lot of strength. I have had one kid who actually, had a broken back from just playing too much golf. They go out there, they're country club kids, and they'll just go out there and shag balls, like 100, 200 balls. And, I've had a parent come to me and say, so-and-so hurt his back. I'm like, well, where in his back? And he didn't really know. So I said, send him in to me. And he showed me. It was basically his upper trap. Now I had a 3D motion capture of his swing. And it turns out he had a lot of stretch between his thorax and his lumbar spine. So, basically he's just putting that stretch there over and over and over again until basically he, injured himself. Yeah. So then, I work with his coach as well. And his coach said, just don't hit so many balls. And that was pretty much the answer. But a lot of these kids can't perform a proper push-up. Forget about doing a pull-up. The squat mechanics are usually pretty poor. Lunging, their knees are all over the place. And it's not like I'm saying these kids are bad. It's just that they want to be athletes, but they're putting their sport first. And what happens is, something's going to break down. Now, if you have a kid that plays a team sport, and a lot of my kids that come to me, they play baseball as well, they play basketball as well, and these are the kids that really tend to flourish in the gym. I have to basically nurture this athleticism out of these kids that are just golfers. So, we work on basically just how to master your body control, master movement. How do you do a squat properly? Working on, getting their first pull-up, doing a proper push-up, lunging, single leg balance, right? And after you do that, then, I'd like to see them doing really cool stuff. But, first we have to master the basics.
So in your facility, do you work with kids that you mentioned that some are playing other sports. Do many of your golfers also play other sports? And are those the ones that you said kind of accelerate a little bit? Or do you have like a specific, is there a big divide between a lot of these kids are golfers and that's all they are? Or are some of them golfers and playing in other sports?
I have golfers that play other sports and do other activities. I also work with other team sport athletes. Okay. So, that's how I make these kind of comparisons. And they're generalizations. I'm not saying like, these junior golfers are all, small, weak, and unstable. But, when you look at a team sport athlete, they have a different physical and I think psychological makeup. And why do they gravitate to golf, let's say, as opposed to gravitating to soccer or football? Right.
That's a good question.
But, I don't have, I have more questions than I have answers. But, when I have a golfer, let's say, who also plays basketball and plays baseball, they're the more athletic ones, and you can get them to do things that maybe are a little bit more accelerated or accelerate them in the progression a little faster than you would, just a newbie, let's say, a newbie to the gym. And don't get me wrong, like a lot of these golfers, whether golf is their only thing, or you have a team sport athlete who also plays golf, they're on the same track, but they just have different, I guess, exposures.
Have you found that some of these kids that, let's just kind of put them in the less athletic category, do they notice the difference? Like when they're in the gym and they see some of the other kids working, do they understand that there's a divide there?
I don't know if they notice themselves. When I'm working with my athletes, I don't do a lot of one-on-one training. It's usually small group stuff. So they're, when the kids come in, it's usually after school. So you'll have a golfer training next to, let's say, a figure skater and a rower, and they're all doing their same stuff. Their programs are all individualized, but when one person has a greater training age and they're doing, let's say, modified Olympic lifts, and another person's just learning how to do a box jump, let's say, I think that there's, some staring going on when somebody's doing more advanced techniques. But, it's not really important that somebody says, hey, I want to look like that person. I want to do what they want to do. I think it's important to make sure that whatever they're doing it well and where they are supposed to be in their progression.
Right. So let's kind of back up a little bit. And so where would you take, and why is it so important to take some of these golfers and educate them on some of these simpler things? You mentioned a lot of them can't do a real push-up. Most people, and I'm going to throw most adults in here too, can't do a real pull-up. Poor squatting techniques, hinging, all of this. Why is it so important for these kids that are, already kind of identifying as golfers, for them to understand these mechanics and have these mechanics when they see on TV, well, all I'm going to be doing is swinging a club?
Yeah. Well, what they see on TV is just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's the final product. But they don't understand that the golf swing is a very complicated movement. It's like a calculus equation. And they want to perform a calculus equation, and they can't do simple arithmetic, addition and subtraction, multiplication, division, right? So, the golf swing is made up of, there's fundamental movement patterns, right? So you have lunging, squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, turning, all in the golf swing. But they have poor movement qualities that can't support what's going on. So eventually something's going to break down. Now, do you have to work out to become a good golfer? No. But, I think Eric Cressy of Cressy Performance works with a lot of baseball players. And he says, it's not often that you find a pitcher who is tall and lanky, right? They have to throw a ball over and over and over again. So it gives them more resiliency. So, I like to see, first I want to be able to see that they can perform a really nice squat, a really nice hip hinge, to be able to do a really nice push up, work towards doing, a pull up on their own, anti-rotation before they do rotation. And then they can start doing really cool stuff like doing the box jumps and things of that nature. Do they have to Olympic lift? No, they don't have to Olympic lift. Would it be nice if they did, modified Olympic lift? Sure, but that's not necessary. So I think that may answer your question. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you see a lot of these kids and they come in and they can't do some basic things, skipping, galloping, some of those types of things. And I think that, different coaches and organizations have done a good job of starting to recognize that. And I see in a lot of these golf clinics that, when they're bringing kids in, they're implementing more than just hitting balls. They're bringing in some of the sports related things, throwing frisbees, throwing footballs, those kinds of things. I think it's important to really kind of bridge that gap of, look, you're not just rotating and swinging a club. each and every
Right.
time. You know,
Right.
there's a lot more to it, and trying to figure out what are those pieces. So what are some of the things when let's say you have a 13-year-old kid, he comes in and he's kind of exhibiting all these weaknesses. Where do you start day one with that kid?
Well, day one, they come in, they get their physical assessment. And, we look at their mobility, their stability, their balance, coordination, and so forth. That's basically just to see where they are, what their movement quality is like. I really don't do any of the power tests till after they basically have some abilities to actually measure, right? So after I, evaluate, how well they squat or can squat, not how much weight they can lift, but how well they can squat unloaded, then we'll start developing, hey, look, if you can squat well, we're going to start loading that pattern up, going to a goblet squat, box squats, front squats, back squats, and so forth. I teach them how to, sum up force and land, doing box jumps. We work on, the workouts, they work on hinge pattern and pushing and pulling, vertical pushes, horizontal pushes, vertical pulls, horizontal pulls. And I have a certain idea of where I want them to go. Mastering their body weight for planks, for, anti-rotation exercises, before we start actually throwing medicine balls. I'm a big advocate of using medicine balls. I love throwing things into the wall. I love throwing things into the ground. I really want them to be try to develop that athlete first. What they do outside of the gym, that's fine. Whether they're going to be hitting a ball with a bat, hitting a ball with a club, throwing a ball or catching a ball. I want to develop all of those qualities. And, first they have to master their, how they control their body weight first. And then we can add those metrics on there. Then we say, okay, I don't do any 1RM stuff, but I like to say, hey, what's your 5 repetition max for your squat, right? Can you, first hip hinge right? Then can we get you to deadlift, right? Go from a goblet squat to a front squat. Go from a kettlebell deadlift into, a hex bar deadlift. I want to see them progress, then go into a kettlebell swing. First is position, are you doing this movement standing? We're doing it kneeling. We're doing it, on one leg. Then we go to movement. What's the movement pattern that we're going to train? Then we're going to, add resistance, right? How much weight can you move? Whether it's a kettlebell, barbell, dumbbell, bands, it doesn't matter. Medicine ball. And then we introduce speed. So if I follow this PMRS model, when training the kids.
Yeah. So PMRS, what exactly, kind of define that for us a little bit?
Position, movement, resistance, and speed.
Gotcha. Yeah. I noticed that, you bring these kids in and you start to work with them a little bit. And I don't work with a lot of kids in this age range. I have a couple high school players, but not a lot of competitive players that I work with in this range. So this is kind of a very exciting conversation to have to learn even more about this. But the ones that I have worked with or do work with, it's fun to see when they start to transfer from, maybe a barbell deadlift to a kettlebell deadlift, and they just kind of start to get it a little bit now. And it's like, oh, that's a movement that you struggled with 2 weeks ago. Whether
success breeds success. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
With a dowel rod or a kettlebell or, doing a good morning or something like that. And then that lights them up. And like you said, then they like to be challenged and they like to try something new, but knowing that they have to own that movement and control it and see that progress. And then you also mentioned getting into like some speed type of things. Kind of explain some of the things that you would go into. And again, why the speed? Why golfers, speed and agility and those kinds of things? Because I think a lot of folks will ask, like, why is this overkill? Is this just doing stuff to do stuff in the gym? I mean, they're golfers, right?
Yeah, well, the whole idea behind speed is the same central nervous system that you use on the golf course, swinging a golf club, is the same central nervous system that you use inside the gym. So most people look at weights, say, look, I'm lifting weights because they want to get stronger. But when you start moving that weight with speed, as doing Olympic lifts or med ball throws or med ball slams or even speed and agility drills, sprinting, that's training your central nervous system to fire muscles and make them relax very quickly. So it's the same thing that you're using on the golf course. If you want to train for speed or you want to be fast, you have to train fast. You have to live in that speed zone. For
sure. Yeah, just kind of teaching the body to learn that. And kind of the same goes with, you mentioned in one of our communications, just energy systems. And some people listening may not even really understand what that means. So maybe if you could kind of clarify that a little bit. But but teaching these kids how to utilize those energy systems and being able to, kind of tap into things that maybe they won't necessarily directly experience on the course. But I think also, kind of taking them to those points of failure in different realms of their physicalness.
Right. Well, I was working with a junior golfer, and as part of the warm up, we were doing some like tempo runs and working into doing some sprinting. And he says to me, "There's not a lot of running in golf." I said, "Well, no, you're absolutely right. There isn't, right? But once again, we're training that central nervous system, and I want to see coordinated upper body and lower body movement, right? I'm actually thinking about including the pro agility drill, the 5-10-5, as part of my screening process. So, because one, it's a change in direction, left to right side. It's very explosive. You accelerate, you decelerate, so, and it's, you're testing that central nervous system. You're showing that you can accelerate your body and decelerate, just like in the golf swing. And you have to control your center of mass, which is really kind of important for all sports. So I kind of like that, kind of assessment or test, and it's measurable. You can do it over and over again. And I think like with any of these other tests, I think Ben Shear was talking about some of the med ball tests that we do for power testing for golf. Part of it is a skill, right? When you do these tests. And you're not really supposed to coach people when they take a test, but you're not going to get the right answers if you don't tell them how to actually throw it. We want to find out how far they can throw the ball, but if they don't get the trajectory right, they're not going to be able to throw. You're not going to get an accurate measurement, right? So if you say, hey, listen, we're gonna test your sit up and throw or your chest pass, and they do it, and it basically comes in hot and low, but like a stinger. You say, listen, we have to get a little more velocity or a little height for this thing, right? So we have to fix your trajectory, go for a 45-degree angle, and then you start getting some tangible results. So part of the 5-10-5, NFL Combine season is right here. So when we're working with a football player going over the 5-10-5, they'll spend hours trying to perfect this test. So, it's one of those things. If you're working with a junior golfer, you test them first. See, like, I'm going to start on this line, go to that line, run through this line, go to that line. You're getting some information, but when you start working it and start coaching them and they see the results, right? I think that goes back to that success breeds success thing.
Sure. Yeah. And it just kind of, like you mentioned, just kind of starts to teach innately some of that acceleration, deceleration, transfer of pressure.
It's athleticism.
Right.
You're developing the athlete.
Yeah, and I think we've seen time and again as of recently, and there have been debates on this, is this newer breed of golfer that we're seeing on the PGA Tour.
Oh, sure.
You talk to any coach that has any relation to any of these guys, and they're saying like, it's the athletes that are really kind of the guys that played other sports, the guys that did other things. They're the ones that are, more powerful. They're more consistent as far as, just their athletic ability to adapt to different situations. And of course there's going to be outliers, and that's always going to be the argument is, the John Daly's or the, whoever they come up with. But the athletic background just creates so much more potential, I think, when it comes to a guy that's going to swing a club 125 miles an hour, for him to be able to adapt in those different settings.
Yeah. And I think also when you have like a team sport athlete, they have this, it goes both ways, right? Because you have a team sport athlete and he has this, this real competitiveness to fight for his position on the team, right? So you carry that into the golf course, you have that going on, right? But also as a team sport athlete, you can also hide behind other people. As an individual sport athlete, you really can't hide. You're out there by yourself, right? So, I think the sword kind of cuts both ways.
Hey, let's take a quick second here to thank our sponsor, Rad Roller. This episode is brought to you by the Rad Rounds product. And if you haven't been on radroller.com, by all means, go there, check out all their different products. They've got a huge suite of myofascial and release products. But the Rad Rounds are basically different size spheres, and they come in all different kind of consistencies and densities that you can use on pretty much any part of the body. I love using the larger one and then kind of scaling down into the smaller ones, especially on my feet. I was just talking to one of my clients, Justin, who's playing on the mini tours, and he said that using the rad roller, the rounds on the bottom of his feet has been a game changer in the way that his feet feel when playing a round of golf. So he'll do it in the morning. I think he does it when he gets back from, practicing all day on the course, walking, putting, all that stuff. So he'll come back and he'll do that when he finishes up his daily routine, and maybe even does it at night as well. But he said that it's been a complete game changer for the way that his feet feel throughout the day, throughout a round of golf. When you're traveling and you're walking 18 holes or more, and you're on your feet all day long, or you're sitting and you've got your dress shoes on, it feels so good to take those shoes off and take one of these rad round products and just sit at your desk and roll it around, kind of hit some of those little knots. And then when you get into the smaller version of the ball, it just targets a little bit more pinpoint specific area, so you can really kind of get into those little nooks and crannies in between the toes and the plantar fascia area and kind of in the arch of the foot. So definitely go to radroller.com and check out the Rad Rounds product, and be sure to use the code 18STRONG when you're ready to check out. So just to shift gears a little bit, I want to kind of talk maybe to the parents that are listening, because I know that there's a lot of folks that maybe have a son or daughter that's kind of around this age or fits right into this gap. They're playing competitive golf. What would you say to them if they're kind of at a place where they're like, I just don't know what to do right now. I've got my kid playing and going and taking lessons. How can I foster this athleticism in them?
Well, I've had, because I work with kids at this age, I've had parents come to me and I ask them, I said, why are you bringing Johnny to me? Right. Or I ask Johnny, what do you want to get out of this? And he's, a lot of times, I'll be training kids that the kid would play against in tournaments, and they'll say, well, he can't hit the ball out of his shadow. Or, the parents would come to me and say, look, he's a competitive golfer. This is what he really wants to do. I know about golf. I've heard about golf fitness. Here's my son, do your thing with him. A lot of times, they try to prescribe what they want for me to do for their son. And they say, I think he needs to do some stretching or whatever. And I'll look at his physical screening and I say, he doesn't need to stretch. He's mobile already. He's unstable. That's his problem. If we get him some stability and some strength, we'll probably do a lot more for him. I think people think because it's golf, they have to stretch, right? I mean, is mobility important? Absolutely. Mobility is very important for golf. But if you have a kid that can lay on their side and basically do that open book stretch and just flop their arm on the ground, more stretching and rotation isn't going to help them, right?
Yeah, in fact, probably would end up hurting them more.
Hurting them, right? Yeah. So, as to the parents, I think that, I'd like to see them confident in a weight room. And if they want to play golf in college, to be prepared for the college strength coach when they get there. Because you're not going to get the golf strength and conditioning coach when you go to college. You're going to get the same guy that's training the baseball team, the hockey team, and the football players, right? And he doesn't care what your sport is. And you may whine that you don't want to do front squats or back squats because it hurts your wrists or hurts your back or your shoulders. You're going to say, get underneath that bar. And I like to, part of my job, I say, listen, I want you to be able to hit the ball farther. I want you to be able to practice and play better golf. But also, if you want to play in college, I want you to be prepared for that college strength coach. I want you to make basically, be confident when you walk into the weight room and make an impression for the strength conditioning coaches and the coach of your team.
It's interesting you bring up the word confidence. I had that written down right in front of me to kind of touch on this. Is I've noticed this, and I have one in particular kid that I worked with, and he wasn't a golfer, but the confidence factor. He had never lifted weights. He had never done anything in a gym, really. And just his mom was a former patient of mine from a long time ago, and he got to the age of, I think he was 14 when he started coming in, and he told his mom, I want to learn how to lift weights. And so she contacted me, and the change in this kid in 6 months from, kind of a quiet, very reserved kid, kind of clumsy and really, very soft spoken and really pretty shy because he kind of felt like he was, kind of the runt of the litter, I guess you'd say. And just being able to get him a little more comfortable. You see him standing taller. You see him walking around with a little bit of a strut. He's starting to see a little bit of musculature. What's been your experience with some of your kids and the change in confidence from going from never lifting a weight to all of a sudden kind of, again, that success breeds success?
So a lot of the kids, if they're competitive golfers, they have a golf coach that they work with, right? And they're getting some great instruction with these golf coaches. They come to me. I'm filling a space in their training program. I want them to feel like walking onto the first tee that they've already won the tournament. They have that walk of confidence that you're speaking of. That showing up and going through those 18 holes or 9 holes is just a formality, right? They've already won. Right, they basically done everything they could possibly do. They're better prepared than their competition when they walk on the first tee and they tee that ball up and make the first swing.
Yeah, I think that mentally just having that advantage is crucial. You mentioned being ready for the college strength coach, and they don't care if you're the baseball team, the football team, which is correct and sometimes is very sad in some of the situations that you hear coming about. But I think it's important because so many people think, oh, well, golf is golf. Golf is different. You have to individualize for all these different sports. And I think that we've missed out a lot in sometimes saying, look, some traditional stuff works, and it's been working for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And, so to put these golfers in this little bucket is maybe not the right thing to do.
Yeah. So I was, I'm all about, continuing education and stuff. And I did, I was watched the video series from Mike Boyle, the strength and conditioning coach in Massachusetts. And he mentions a quote from Dr. Marco Cardinale, who was the head of sports science and research for the British Olympic Association. And Dr. Marco Cardinale says, your sport isn't special, you just think it is.
Love it.
So, and if you were to train Mike at Mike Boyle's place, he says that, he works with baseball players, hockey players. He really made his name with training hockey players. He says his strength training program, his strength programs is pretty much sport general. He doesn't really care what sport you're playing. It's a rotational-based sport, and he knows about training baseball players and, overhead athletes and things of that nature. But really what becomes more sport-specific is, conditioning, cardiovascular conditioning. So if you're playing a team sport, then it becomes kind of important, training a football player versus a hockey player versus a basketball player. I think that's when it becomes really a bit more sport-specific. But, golfers, would you train a golfer differently than, let's say, another rotary sport athlete like a hockey player or a baseball player? I think if you trained the similarities more, you'd probably develop a pretty good golfer.
Yeah, and I think
a golf training program. Yeah,
I think that kind of goes back to the analogy you made of the golf swing being like calculus and most people not really understanding how to do, addition and subtraction. And so a lot of times you get these athletes and we put them in these boxes and we say, okay, well, you're a rotational athlete. You're going to have to really learn how to rotate with some speed. And at the same time, you're like, well, this guy can't even walk in a straight line or can't do lunge walks. So, why are we even worried about him rotating at 125 miles an hour when the guy can't do a push-up or a pull-up?
Yeah. And if you break the golf swing down, there is a lunge in there. There's a squat in there. There's a push and a pull in there. If you just basically break down the golf swing into its salient qualities and train each one of those, your brain's going to put it all together. Just because it's a rotationally based sport, don't just do rotation. Because if somebody in season is, a range rat and they're hitting hundreds of balls before they go and play, then they go play on top of it, and then they hit the range afterwards because they're, they have to work on something before they go home. They're doing all this one-sided motion. If anything, they should probably do more rotation in the other direction when they come into the gym.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be heavy. Just has to, counter those movements.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
balance them, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, balance them out. I mean, we tend to put so much emphasis on, and I think, the whole term golf fitness has become kind of a big term, obviously, that I particularly don't care for, because I've never heard anyone say hockey fitness or baseball fitness or any of those. And so I think that we get this mindset around what we have to be doing specifically for golfers, and we're not really working on some of the fundamental pieces. And I think that's where people kind of get lost a little bit. Not to say that there's going to be golfers that can't be great without doing a lot of the training and stuff. There's always going to be, again, the outliers. But I think that, having this piece along with a very skilled athlete or very skilled golfer, you put those two together, and it's just such a great combination that you can't argue with. Why would you not?
Yeah. I think Dr. Greg Rose had a nice analogy, and he says that, as, say, a performance coach, it's our job to basically, it's like making a kitchen. So, we give them the place to put the washing machine, the dishwasher, place to put the sink and the refrigerator and so forth. And it's their job, right, to put the nicest one in there that they can afford, basically, right? So, basically, we give them the tools. It's how they use them, right? Which is up to them. So if you give them great lower body stability or great upper body stability and strength and the ability to generate speed and still stay in control and to train their central nervous system to be able to accelerate and decelerate and recruit more motor units, I think that's the job of the strength conditioning coach.
Yeah. I think that's great to differentiate, because then they also have their practice. They have their other coach, to work on the technique stuff. That's not, the gym is not the area where you should be working on your putting technique and things like that. And sometimes I think those get convoluted as well.
Yeah. I'm kind of bothered by the whole, golf fitness term as well. You see people, on social media, talking about their golf fitness programs and demonstrating exercises. I'm like, well, it looks like a really nice, exercise for just general populations. Maybe how does that relate to the golf swing? Let's see somebody, if you have a really nice RDL, nice deadlift, that's nice. But, hey, I love the stir that Rory McIlroy, made when he's deadlifting his 400 pounds or whatever it was. I mean, hey, you know what? Do you have to deadlift 400 pounds? And this is actually a pretty good question. Like, how strong is strong enough to play golf? Yeah. Right. So, does somebody have to deadlift 400 pounds? Probably not. Would he be better off trying to deadlift with speed? Right. Kind of like a triphasic training approach. I think that may be a better thing. But how strong is strong enough? I mean, I think so. If you think about not only the movement patterns, but also the speed of motion, and what kinds of contractions you're using. Is it an eccentric, a concentric, or a isometric contraction? These are just kind of things that you kind of think about when you're working with athletes of different sports.
Yeah, I think we all need to. That's such a great question. Is the how strong is strong, and that can be debated for years on end, right? And
just like the people that bring up, hey, Tiger Woods, he worked out. Look what happened to his back. Well, you don't know if he had something congenital in there. If you don't know where the injury happened, you know what kind of training he was doing in the gym. It's all speculation, right? But I think that as coaches, if you have a nicely designed program, no program is going to be absolutely perfect. But if you understand the athlete that you're working with, the sport that they're playing, where they want to go and what you're trying to, and what their vision is for the future, I think you can come up with a pretty good plan and modify it, as you progress.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think going back to a quick little mention of Tiger Woods, most people would say like, oh, well, look what he did, and look what he did to his back and the way he was swinging. Well, I think if you ask a lot of guys on tour, if they'd be willing to trade some of the physical ailments that Tiger has now for being the greatest golfer in the world ever, some of those guys might take that trade. I know that there was actually a study done with Olympic athletes, and they said, like, if you knew that you were going to win the gold medal, but you were basically going to be debilitated or you're going to die like in less than 5 years, I think almost 100% of them said I'll take that gold.
Really?
Yeah. I'll have to look that up and see if I can find where I got that, what reference it was. I swear I didn't make that up on my own, but I just heard that recently in another interview. So just thought
that's pretty steep.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. We before we close out here, I got to ask the regular questions. I got to ask the official Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore.
I'm a Caddyshack guy.
Very nice. And if you had a song that you could pick to play when you're walking up to the tee box on the 16th hole at the Waste Management Open, what is your song?
Problem Child by AC/DC.
Oh, that would get the crowd riled up there. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe that'd be a good environment for that. All right. And if you had 18 holes of golf that you could play with anyone in the world, past, present, or future, who would it be and where would you play?
I'd like to play an ocean course, a Kiowa or something like that. I was thinking about Ben Hogan, but I think he'd be too serious. I'd want to play with somebody a little bit more fun. If it's going to be a golfer, maybe Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth. Non-golfers, I was thinking of Eddie Van Halen. I had a client that was on a honeymoon. He ended up playing around with Eddie Van Halen as tour manager, I think. And he said, I said, was he any good? He said, no, he wasn't very good. But every time they came upon like a maintenance crew, he'd give them $100 to go back to the clubhouse and buy a case of beer. So they bring beer out and they're having a good old time. But I think Sammy Hagar would be probably my pick for playing like a non-golfer.
Nice.
I think he'd be fun. Yeah.
Very nice. Excellent answers. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate your time today, and I know we touched on a lot of different things, and I think it just gave some people some things to think about, and for ourselves. Obviously it's an end-long debate on how we can help make these younger golfers more athletic, how we can kind of progress and make sure that they're doing the right things. But I love the work that you're doing, and I really appreciate you coming on. One last piece of advice for the 18 Strong audience, and then let them know where they can find your stuff.
Well, the audience that we're speaking to being kids, I'd say, think about your sport as maybe being, think of developing the athlete first and becoming a golfer second. For the parents, it's not all about stretching for golf. I think that there's many more physical qualities or attributes that you could work on to develop better, a better golfer. And for the golf professionals out there, I think a lot of those golf professionals, embrace TPI. They think it does good stuff, and it does. Let's see participate in a TPI or a golf fitness program yourself or golf performance program, and send your junior kids out there. Incorporate that in the stuff that you're doing, in the club. And one thing we really didn't touch on as well is, when these kids come and show up, it looks like they've been fed a steady diet of, chicken tenders, French fries, and Skittles. I'd like to see, hey, look, how about, not having that kind of stuff and maybe more nutritious things available for kids to eat on the course, because they spend a lot of time there when weather permits, and it'd be good to have them have more nutrient dense low calorie foods at their disposal. As far as me, I can be reached at trainingincperformance.com. My Instagram is it's training_inc.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you brought up the nutrition thing, because I think that is a huge topic that we could probably spend a whole nother episode on.
Sure.
But, even just you see kids in athletics all the time. And again, it was just listening to an episode on a different podcast, and they talked about, kids' sports and like the parents bringing snacks afterwards and stuff like that. And it's like, man, we got to really kind of change this paradigm of, first of all, kids just getting treats and snacks as rewards for things, especially for physical accomplishments and going out to practice and working hard. And then, hey, let's go get some ice cream. And I struggle with that myself too. Like growing up, I loved going to get donuts and ice cream and stuff like that. And it's fine every now and then, but like every single day after practice or
becomes
games,
a norm. Yeah,
it really does.
You go to Starbucks and they have their Frappuccino or whatever. I'm like, this Dairy Queen disguised,
Yeah, cake pops and all that stuff.
if you want to talk about, long-term athletic development, I had 3 14-year-olds training next to each other. Each one looked different. One was like 6'2", like 130 pounds. The other one was a stockier build, and the other one was like what you consider like normal for a kid that size and kid that age. I want the tall one to be walking around with a chicken breast in one hand and a baked potato in the other, and taking bites in between sets. And he's like, "Well, I'll do that if you can, if I can play my playlist on the radio." I'm like, "No, it's not about that. It's not for me. It's for you."
Right.
But like you said, it's a topic for another conversation. Yeah.
Right. All right, man. Well, I really enjoyed this, and I'm sure we'll be having many more of these conversations in the future. But we'll be talking to you very, very soon.
All right. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks for joining us this week on the 18 Strong Podcast. If you want any more information on Rene or Training Inc. or any of the stuff that we talked about in today's episode, just go to 18strong.com and you can search for Rene, Rene, or just look up episode number 179 and you'll find everything linked there from the show here. Be sure to check out our 4-part video series, Get Off the Golf Fitness Roller Coaster. If you're somebody that has struggled with staying on a routine or just figuring out where to start, what should you be focusing on? What are the important components that you should have in your training program or just kind of in your weekly routine that's going to make your body better fit to play the golf that you want to play? So again, that's the Golf Fitness Roller Coaster. You go to 18strong.com/roller coaster and you'll get all of those free videos sent directly to your email. And lastly, be sure to support and check out our buddies over at Rad Roller, radroller.com, to specifically look at that Rad Round product, which is one of my go-tos. I keep it in a bag that I travel with at all times. Plus, we have them at the gym, so I can pretty much use them 24/7 at any time I'd like. All right, look forward to catching up with you next week on the 18 Strong Podcast with another great episode. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong Podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.